Alright everyone, we start off today talking about the Tyre Nichols beating. Of course, this is a Memphis story from the United States. Five rogue law enforcement officers beat a man to death. And some people are still, by the way, proclaiming a racial motive here. It's been pointed out that all five of the cops who do face murder charges for their role in causing the injuries that led to his death, they happen to be black, as does Tyre Nichols. So I'm not sure why there are still some people sticking with the white supremacy line on this. Unfortunately, when things like this happen, and link in the description, you can watch the video of the beating yourself. They did release the actual video. It's not a really pleasant video to watch, so, you know, unless you happen to be like really a thin blue liner and you're like, yeah, curb stomp the suspect or something like that, and I think you might be a little bit loopy, but, you know, you can review it or not review it. It's fairly graphic. Anyway, what'll happen here is, well, it's already happening. It'll be used as an excuse by leftist groups to riot. They're currently rioting in multiple cities, including places that are quite far removed from Memphis. Antifa will go out in the streets. They've been, you know, bashing in windshields and throwing their poo at people and burning businesses and doing the normal leftist thing, pretending to speak for the aggrieved black community, despite the fact that they're like 90% lily white trust funders from gated communities. That's what'll end up happening. So, we've seen it before. Person gets beaten by the cops, or the cops go into their home and randomly shoot them, which happened a few days ago. I noticed that that particular story wasn't national news. Just to be clear, they shoot someone unlawfully. They, you know, and during the Dorner chase back in LA years ago, they were firing on random vehicles. They paralyzed one person. I don't think that person even ever got a payout. Over and over and over again, though, when you have an act of police brutality, depending on whether it is a woke enough story, it's either amplified to the point where you get race riots and things like that, and then the left comes in and starts screaming about getting rid of the police altogether, and you need more diversity training and stuff like that, or the topic is ignored altogether. I noticed that there were never any significant protests over the shooting of other individuals based on the color of their skin, just to be clear about how this works. So there's no chance of policing reform, because the people that are the most mad make fools of themselves, commit more crimes and acts of violence, show their ass, and people that would normally be amenable to the concept of reforming the way in which metro policing is done, which tends to be the repository of this kind of violence, it never really gets off the ground because those people start getting more scared of the rioters and they put the thin blue line flag back on the back of their vehicle or on their post box or something like that. There's no chance of reform. It's rather sad because, I mean, the fans of violence are often whipped into existence by the legacy media gone amok anyway. So here you have a person clearly murdered. These cops had subdued him. He was resisting arrest. Originally, he was, you know, picked up for reckless driving. So you've got a misdemeanor, reckless driving. You have another misdemeanor, resisting arrest. He's not being violent, but he is attempting to evade arrest. Almost gets away at one point. And despite the fact that they eventually subdue him, they continue to beat him. Now, at some point, it's no longer the onus is on the suspect. They're no longer really actively able to resist arrest. They've been cuffed, they're on the ground, and they're still getting, you know, a boot in their face. At that point, the cops become the aggressors. So even if they were justified initially in punching him and tasing him to get him to the ground, once he was already down and he's already got the knee on his neck, you can't just continue beating the suspect randomly with batons and shit. Clearly an act of murder in this case. Again, they are actually being put on trial for this. They will probably get time in prison. Will they get as much time as Derek Chauvin? The world may never know. This is considerably more damning than like the George Floyd arrest footage or something like that. It's murder. We'll just call it what it is. Doesn't matter if the people that committed the murder happen to be wearing badges. By the way, I do support ending qualified immunity, just to be clear. You can support the concept of having police and wanting to have like a respectful society and have policing for legit crimes. Reckless driving would be one of them, without having them effectively acting like judge, jury, and in this case, literally executioner. They beat the man half to death to the point where a person who was pulled over for a relatively minor charge ends up going to the hospital and his heart stops because he's been beaten so severely. Again, you can choose or not choose to watch the footage for yourself. Draw your own fucking conclusions. You don't need a third party to analyze it. They released the footage the other day. So it's it's fairly damning, rather unfortunate. The most unfortunate aspect goes even beyond Tyre Nichols. It goes into the fact that we can't have a national conversation about these sorts of things without people screaming, number one, race, which doesn't even apply here, or number two, well, we need to defund the police, or suggesting things that wouldn't even help in the situation, and none of it's going to bring the dude back to life, unfortunately, so he's been killed. You can put the cops on trial, but really we need to put the policing system on trial. The left is fundamentally correct when they talk about needing to reform the police. It's just that the plethora of reforms that they put forward are all toxic and stupid, wouldn't actually accomplish anything. So people who have legit solutions to the problem, like, hey, maybe there needs to be more training about self-restraint. Maybe there needs to be more civics lessons in schools so the people that are going to the academy understand the basic summation of the Constitution, the right of people not to be, beaten to death in the middle of the street having done nothing particularly wrong. Maybe common sense is something that more people need more of. It's probably a lost cause trying to instill it in them for the most part, but there are ways in which we can try to tackle these things, ending qualified immunity is fine. I noticed that most of the left-wing politicians pointing out that very true fact then throw in 5 or 6 other things that are completely a mess. Well, this is why we need to disarm the police, British style. Well, I mean, some cops can be, more lightly armed. That's probably not a problem. Don't think it would work in a metro area overrun with the gang crime that your own policies cause, so you can probably scrap that idea. Oh, we need social workers to go out on call with these people. If you see someone reckless driving, don't call the cops, send the social worker to talk to them, to make sure that everything's okay, and then you find that they're doped up to the eyeballs on meth and carrying a loaded gun, and then they shoot the social worker, and obviously now you've got a bigger problem than if the cops probably had responded to that particular scene. But that doesn't give them the right to randomly execute people. Again, the motive here, I saw someone claim that maybe Tyre Nichols was helping one of their wives cheat on him with Tyre Nichols. I have no clue whether that's been posited in any serious manner by anyone, so it could be basically a revenge killing of some sort, but I think it's just a bunch of steroid-addled officers decided to shoot from the hip again because, again, every time we try to have a conversation about this prevalent issue, which is police brutality and overreach, it gets hijacked by the far left and by a bunch of rioters. You're going to see more riots than you will actually peaceful protests, so what's the fucking point? You're going to have to deal with brutality and violence from all sides, and you're going to continue because you're not willing to address the issue in a manner that actually makes any form of fucking sense. That's about all. Peace out.